water tower
Right,
in a town in Texas.
right.
This will be the
First of its kind.
There you go.
And we do want to keep the historical.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we just haven't gone that far yet.
Oh, we own the oldest building in town.
And we,
We
you
want the history
know,
here.
thought maybe even using a brain bin. I mean, we just tossed around the number.
Right, right.
So, yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, I think we gotta get past that first hurdle.
Yeah, that picture is not,
But I think it's a good
Eye-pleasing right
idea. I think it's unique.
yeah, it's not a bad idea, it's just, like, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, we were going by that picture, so.
Yeah.
Pretty good that we talked, because it,
But if we can't get, that we can't build or have the footing within a foot or so of the property line to elevate up.
Right.
Then it's a dead issue.
right.
Right, right.
That's what we're
Because
seeing.
I'm not gonna spend $35,000 having the same engineer.
Oh, no.
And come here and say, look, we can
Right.
accept.
No, that's why we need to get, we get with the city attorney and see if those setbacks are doable first for you.
Have they already started looking into it, the attorneys?
I've sent it to them. I
Okay.
don't know where they are in the review on it, but I'll certainly follow up with them and let you guys know and let the Fawcett's know kind of where that stands.
And thank you for clarifying. On the drawing, I didn't realize that drainage, the drainage ditch is, who owns that, do you know? Is it
The city.
The
Okay.
city did maintain that for 18 years.
Yeah, so they actually own, that's considered easement, I guess?
Right.
Okay, so we're right against that, so I know that's going to give you some limitations too on the footings. And that was my point, I saw some fresh stakes put in the ground right here, and I assumed that was the part of that yard, but thank you for clarifying that. And again, I didn't mean to jump ahead on that. It was just an idea when I was over there, because I thought if this thing doesn't work for you, there may be something where we can come a nice joint venture with the city possibly, you know.
Is there a rendering anywhere of the food park that's proposed?
Yes, there's some
Yeah,
preliminary, there is some, I think Mayor Byron might have that. I feel like we have.
Is the roundabout still a thing or not? Yeah.
We don't know. Oh, yeah, we can get that to you. Because there would be, right behind that Burger Fresh shed, there's about 5 foot width up against that drainage where it would take you right to it. And it's just something, if this doesn't work, that could be a really big benefit to the city, so you might be able to work something for a walk, because we're all talking about walkability and part of the comprehensive downtown plan. All right?
I thought I had a picture of the food truck area that they gave us before,
Yeah.
of what the proposed was, but I don't have it with me.
I've got it.
They've given it to us.
I'll bring it by.
I just don't have it in my packet.
Well, we can go back to the hall and probably.
Okay.
Is that your only idea that you're thinking about for that area? Is that just your,
That's about the only thing you do is build up.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's right.
Because at some point, if the property can't be used, I'm not going to pay more property taxes.
When our property taxes went up, it was.
That piece of property went up 1,007% last year. That's not double, that's 10 times.
Wow.
And I'm not going to pay that anymore, I can't do something that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it is a unique property. If it can be done with some creativity, possibly. All right. Anything else? Well, thank you for your input. Appreciate you being here.
You know, engineer, the city attorneys, or whoever it consists.
Yep, as soon as I find out, I'll update the commission and I'll update y'all.
I'd like to move forward as soon as possible.
Yes, sir.
To have it done before winter.
Yep. I'll have an answer for you the next couple of days at the most.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank y'all.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Item number 3, consideration and possible action on a draft preliminary report for rezoning request from R1 single-family residential to B commercial for 14640 Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas, as submitted by Evan Ballou.
Members of the commission, you've got the preliminary report with the key bullet points on there. You have to answer any thoughts or questions that you have on it.
Is Mr. Ballou here tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Did I say it right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, just as a reminder of the process, we prepare a preliminary report and we hold our public hearings on it. So we're doing, our public hearings.
Okay.
After our last meeting, I was thinking about it, and I've drove by there several times, just down that corridor. And I even mentioned before in our meeting, is that going to turn into all business? And it's people's property, and apparently everyone wants to do what they want to do with their property. My question was, if we turn it to commercial and the present owner decides that, hey, I'm going to sell it, move on, I'm going to do something else, because it's commercial, the possibility of a gas station, is that a possibility?
Yes.
Is there enough room for a gas station and digging that deep to do all that? Okay.
So any use that's allowed by, or in the commercial district under the table of permitted uses would be allowed on the commercial
Okay.
property. That said, there are some practical restraints like the
Yes, okay.
size of the property. You can only do, so much with it. That's not to say that a future owner's not going to acquire, several pieces of property. But with respect to this one itself, yet the size does limit the,
Is the land to the north of it for sale, beside that house?
not to my knowledge.
Okay.
What is the depth of that lot? Do you know?
I think it's 0.57 of an acre. It's in the setback, commercial setback, Mr. Corgadell, isn't that 25 feet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it does limit the use of that property.
So what is, I know this has been going on for a while, what's TxDOT's plans coming up on 49? Is it going to take
Yeah.
each side of the road into these yards? Byron or Mayor, do you
I
know?
thought that they were going to go wide downtown and then go back to 2-lane at that point. Dave, right?
Right, I don't know.
They didn't have plans to go wide there.
I
Okay,
don't know that they're contemplating, taking any additional right of way.
Okay.
Everything I've heard, or that the city has heard, we're understanding that they're working, within their existing right of way. I don't think they were expanding the lanes.
Okay.
Go north, but again, I've not seen the plans in
Okay.
a couple of years, so.
And to answer your question, it's roughly 200 feet.
deep,
Yes, sir.
okay.
I think that corridor has the traffic counts and visibility that's befitting of commercial uses on that corridor.
Agreed.
My concern is the houses behind in Buffalo Springs and providing some sort of buffer for light pollution, noise pollution, general aesthetics. I know that there were some properties downtown here that there's commercial that abutted to residential, and that was one of the requirements or stipulations that we had, is instituting a buffer, just to preserve those properties, and the integrity of those properties and their privacy.
And I'm just worried about keeping it, the street, not only the residential behind it, but uniformity coming up and down 105. I know the overlay has got that, and up on both sides. 149 is as commercial, but I think it's going to be a long time before there's any commercial up and down through there. And to have a commercial building, a residential building, a commercial building, a residential, I think that's something we need to look at, because I believe it's going to be a long time before there's any of that is going to be sold off as a whole strip of commercial. you're going to have a residential, you're going to have a sign, you're going to have another residence. And there's not many of those strips along through there that are large enough to facilitate a commercial building, a parking lot, drainage,
Storage.
it's a big concern, traffic count, the whole.
And even, getting egress, and, or what you call it, getting off and on 149. Those are all good points, and I agree. Both sides and to the back. We've got, in Buffalo Springs, there's 2 residential yards and directly back up to it. And then on either side, the south side, that's a large, long lot, and somebody might be eventually wanting to put something in there too, residential. And then on the north side, it's real tight, it's right up against it. One other thing, I just wanted to point this out, and Dave, you might be able to help us. I'm trying to remember, 6 or 7 years ago, we started that movement towards fixing up the old houses. And there's been 4 or 5 that have been completed. I think this might be one of them. But there's a second one just down the street a little further on the left. And then there's a couple more. And my concern is that overlay, I'm not sure when that all started, but I think we're contradicting ourselves if, like what Bill said, there was some very strict rules when they got those houses redone, because it involved certain income level, you had to show 80% something.
I don't know that these houses on 149 were part of the home grant. They were down in
Yeah.
the last
But I
round
thought
that we done were on the Martin Luther King area.
Yeah.
The ward that were down.
They never really talked about the one right there across
Yeah.
from Jim's and all that? No.
Those I'm not.
But no, but
certain.
the one that's just a little further down on the other side from this one, I thought that was one of those
It
grant.
wasn't one of the recent round of home grant homes, and I think it
Okay.
was probably built after,
Yeah.
if the city did another, round of home grant.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. But I guess my point simply is, I don't know how far that overlay goes where we're talking about future commercial, but, if we're encouraging fixing up old homes, we have to kind of be mindful of that too, because some of that may get into some of those areas where we've already encouraged the renovation of residential homes. So it seems like kind of a conflict if we're saying commercial later on.
I don't think your future land use plan is necessarily, contradicting your current zoning. It's 2 different,
Okay.
2 different timelines, or 2 different horizons. The EDC has funded, now this wasn't a renovation of homes, but it was a removal of blight. Several years ago, and looking to take down some of the unsafe structures,
Right.
At no cost to the property owner. And again, like I said, there was the home grant program that did go to new homes. But in terms of cleaning up the corridor, I know there's been even a lot of residents from the community. Arnett is one that comes to mind who talks about this corridor and ensuring that that we're doing what we can to keep a good visual image for folks that are coming through the city.
I see it both ways. Commercial kind of scared me. I was like, I don't want a gas station sitting there right away. But if we could, like I asked for the master plan to see what our direction is in Montgomery earlier in the month or last month. But if we could drive down through there and just like that counseling center with that small sign that sits out front, it's not unattractive. Actually, he made it very attractive. But if you've ever been in downtown Tomball or where they have the businesses that are downtown, where you drive through, quote unquote, looks like a residential subdivision, and they have businesses where they have turned homes into businesses and made small signs and made it very welcoming, made the parking lot very welcoming. I mean, if this is the direction that maybe 149 is going in, I could see something like that that is more, appeasing to the eye as you drive down. The house is not a bad looking house. I mean, they did a really good job on it. But my thing is if you need, for improvement, if we want improvement and we want to set the pace of how we want it to look, we're gonna have to give and take. And we've already got a business up there. That building turned into that counseling center.
Right, and depending on where you're talking about, maybe special use permit would be the option, because then you have some control.
But, well, the thing is, if it is commercial, they can live there too afterwards, right?
It is, right.
Yeah, yeah.
So if the commercial doesn't work and the business decides that it wants to go somewhere else, then someone can live there. But if it's residential, no one can do business out of it.
May I ask
But
you?
we're going to set the precedence, though, once we say it, though.
Yes.
So the property, it sat on the market for 7.5 months, and and that's what I do for a living. I sell real estate, and people don't want to live there because of the traffic count, what's across the street, and the property across the street has some significant title issues that really hold it back. And so you're going to continue to look at that stretch of road looking the same if something's not done. And just so that I can speak on behalf of myself, I want to invest into it, paint, incorporate the state flag on the paint, a small sign, the watershed is what I have in mind. So I just, when someone comes to Montgomery, they're looking for a legal office or somewhere to office, there's nowhere to go. 105 and 149, there's nothing south and there's nothing on 105. So there's just nowhere in Montgomery for small legal offices or professional offices. So that's,
And that's going towards Lone Star, which is supposed to be building up
So
now, too.
it was say it does get zoned commercial, and is there a driveway there now?
yes, sir, there's a,
What is it, gravel or
it's paved.
it's paved?
Yes, sir.
So if you put a parking lot in, it's going to need to be paved,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And everything would be to the city's, blessing, of course, who meets the ordinances and signage, setbacks.
Because it's fenced in now, and I mean, if they really turned it commercial, the backyard, they really didn't do anything to the backyard. I think there's a shed back there, but it's a black iron fence around it. You can see right through it. I mean, you did turn it commercial.
Honestly, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Honestly, for what I gave for the property, it doesn't even make sense to do anything residentially with it. And it needs a significant amount of investment. It has foundation issues. So I'm already overhead or upside down in it, if you would, if I can't do this with it. So the property sat there and is dilapidated and pretty much, I say dilapidated, it sat there and degraded for the last 8 months or however long it's been since someone's lived there. And it's going to continue. Like I said, it sat there because no one wants to have their children running on 149 or whatever feelings they get being there. They don't have, and it is a very confusing piece of property because the county has it appraised for $200,000 more according to this year to what it's actually worth. An actual appraiser came out and appraised it for $113,000 more than what I gave for it because using Buffalo Hills or Buffalo Springs as comps, and so it's a very interesting piece. But you really can't do anything when no one's going to. I would say what one would think it's worth, that individual is not going to want to live there. And so it's highest and best use, it meets the city's future planning. And really truly with the size of that property, you're one property over from a church, which I don't know what they're at in the process with their other rezoning and the watershed. It's just, if a food truck park is, I can stand at the driveway and see gyms and Lone Star Parkway, which that property is selling commercially. So it's very, I don't think anything's going to happen with that stretch of road unless,
Well, and just so you know, the church that's institutional as well.
right.
But yeah, and I'm sure you understand our really concern is just that if you were to, years down the, move on to do something else, if you were to move on, then the concern is what could go in if it's zoned commercial. So Dave, would we consider, like we've done with the Oaks or some of the others, a special use permit?
Sure can.
Yeah, that might be. something to talk
But then a
about.
special use permit is, you have to get that renewed, and it's,
But if it changes
If you have a
ownership,
business-
it goes back to what it was.
yeah.
It doesn't,
Right, you can place stipulations on time for a duration, some of that, depending on, what someone's business plan is, I can understand how there's a lack of certainty there that makes it, difficult, but you can put those time restraints on it, you can put, you can tie it to an owner. In other words, if the current owner decides to sell, then, the transfer of it would require approval by city council to ensure that the person coming in is going to do something similar in nature to what the current person is. But a special use permit, in this case, could very likely allow you to do that. You can leave it residential, but use it as more of a transitional use. I can, again, run that by the attorneys to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn there, but.
I'm looking at it, because I am an appraiser, but that's what I do. And so if I'm looking to appraise a property, I'm appraising it to its highest and best use. And that is a commercial property, that's where you're gonna get the highest dollar for, and that's where the demand's gonna be. Because of the traffic counts, the visibility from 149, the accessibility. And so I know this is outside of the historic downtown area. So tough to say it's open and free, but I think that's also part of the free market.
I was leaning towards commercial. I think it's a prime area. It sets the tone. Somebody's they're going to want to come into Montgomery to get to it. They have to come down Lone Star Parkway to get there, if it's something that people want to come to. My only concern was, can they drop a gas station in there?
Right.
That's my biggest deal, was like, commercial is commercial, and I don't want a gas station right there. It doesn't need to be there.
no, but and it is surrounded by residential, both
Yeah.
sides and.
And but I don't know the rules, but
Yeah, no, yeah.
if it sets the precedent, then if that's what we're moving towards, which that's what people are doing, I mean,
But
that's,
if you do this, then there is a possibility of anything else coming in on either side or across the street. So we have to be careful
Like you
what we're
said,
doing.
we don't want to end up with alternating.
I think that, and it's just my opinion, if you don't do it, then no one's going to buy those properties to build a home on. No one's going to want to live on 149 because the traffic count's going to get higher. It's community reinvestment, and I don't believe that anyone's going to invest the money into that area if there isn't some sort of return other than public dollars.
have you talked to any of the neighbors across the street, next door, anybody, like with your ideas, or have you been approached, or you approached
I've
them?
not been approached. There's a gentleman that sits on the porch across the street. I've not approached him. I've thought about introducing myself to the back neighbors, but I've really been kind of indifferent on, hey, I want to have community events here, a barbecue, I can understand the concerns, I really do, but I do know that most of the value of the property is the residential dwelling that's there, and the highest best use for that is a professional office. And I totally understand, it's just, I don't know what to do with it if we don't, because it doesn't make sense.
So you don't plan on living there? You bought it with the intention of
The hope, yes ma'am.
the hope?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I'd like to set roots. As you know, I'm from Montgomery, I'd like to set roots in the city and be more involved. Was gonna lease the space for Mr. Cheatham, and I said, you know what, if I sign this lease in 5 years, I'm gonna look up and I'm not gonna be able to afford anything in this town. And so that's, like I said, I'm just trying to revitalize it a little bit, but at the same time, set up some roots in town, and made sense to me.
And you've been in Montgomery how long?
Since '98.
Do you have any other properties in Montgomery, or just your home?
Not in the city limits, I have some on MLK, and then we're out in Dobbin, we have some properties out there, and Lake Hunt, out in unincorporated areas, but
Residential or commercial?
all residential or unrestricted, yes ma'am.
I have a comment.
Okay, we're at a good point now for, we're going to move on to public hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
This has been good discussion to familiarize. According to the agenda, now we can move on to public hearing, number 1 and number 2.
We have
You want to take action on the preliminary
Yeah.
report before you hold this here?
Possible action. But then item number 6 is the final report for the same subject.
Right, we need to, so the current item is the preliminary report. We need to approve a preliminary report so we can go into the public hearings. You do your final report after that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary report.
I second it.
Meaning,
The final report for rezoning.
Request for R1 single-family residential to be commercial
okay, yeah.
for 14640 Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas.
Okay, so the motion is to,
To approve the preliminary report.
okay. And we have a second?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Yes. I oppose.
The report,
Well,
preliminary report.
maybe I misunderstood. Hold on.
This is to go on to public.
Okay. Just to go on to public. I'm sorry. I thought we were approving it to go commercial.
No, this is to
This
go
is
on
just to go to the
public
preliminary.
hearing.
This is to just approve the preliminary, so we can have the
All
public
right, sorry.
hearings.
Appreciate.
We want to hear what the people have to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to, yeah.
We're going to listen to the people.
Agreed.
I thought we were,
That's right.
so I say aye. So we had a motion and a second, and the motion passed unanimously. Okay. All right, moving on to, now we're at public hearing, item number 4. We convened into public hearing at 6:46.
If you want to speak at the public hearing, do you go to the podium or do you stand up?
Yes, if you would, we would prefer just to come to the podium and please state your name and address so we can confirm you're a resident of the Montgomery.
Sarah Countryman, 396 Berkeley. I live behind, in the neighborhood behind this. And number one, I have an issue with buying a residential piece of property and knowing you want to do it commercial. Why didn't you come to the city ahead of time and say, hey, I'm looking at this. What's the city's view on turning it commercial? I feel like it's a little bit of a hoodwink in that scenario. Also, yes, that maybe that one piece of property is not fit for a gas station, but what if they buy the properties to it and now it becomes a gas station? Not ideal for the neighborhood behind there, which is the neighborhood where I live, in my opinion. Third, there are professional offices about a mile away at Shannon Salisbury's, which he built out a few years ago and has yet to be able to be fully full. So having professional offices, like you stated, for a lawyer or whatever, we have those spaces available, maybe not in a home, but they're available and they're still available. And he has yet to have that office space fully rented. Also, what is this going to do for the appraisals? I got my appraisal district bill. It's outrageous. I know buying that small little piece of lot downtown, Mexico's great did for all of the property owners downtown. Their appraisals went out of the wazoo commercially. So I personally am not in favor of this. I hope that the commission takes into consideration that the residents by their, it's residential, everything, being on council for years, what I learned is those houses on 149 that y'all talked about consideration for, the title and deeds are not available, you're right. So therefore, that's why they've never been cleaned up. That's why there's nothing that's been able to be improved, because they can't truly prove who owns the property. And the reason why they're dilapidated is because they have to keep the original roof line in order to have that tax abatement or tax credit. So that's why they don't build new on that property. And in order for that to take place, they have to keep that original roof line because, and again, they can't sell it because there's no I can't prove who owns it because it was slave property. It was given to families. And I've actually been on a mission to find out how we can get around it, and I've yet to find an attorney or anyone to be able to help out to say, okay, I don't know, because it can't be forgiven forever. I mean, it is what it is. So I don't know that we can ever sell on a commercial unless, I was speaking to somebody, unless those families, which I don't believe that their kids are living here close anymore, which they used to, if the kids decide, once those people, because they do dwell in those houses, pass away, maybe the kids would say, okay, we want to sell. I don't know if they have the right to because I don't think they can get the titles. And so we're in a bad situation and we're stuck. And, you know, Houston has no zoning. You have a house next to a retail shop next to a house, and we're not Houston. So, and again, if it does happen to be commercial down the road, in whatever year of our Lord, great, but today it's residential, and I don't see the other residential piece ever being solved. Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
May I speak to Ms. Countryman? What is the proper form of standing?
We
So-
could,
Okay,
Yeah, it's
so
open.
just make sure we
yeah,
get
yes, please do, yes.
So I was given an opportunity to speak, but I did come to City Hall. Mr. McCorkadell spoke to, looked at, I examined the city's future planning maps, and that's what helped me make that decision. Is there wasn't a hoodwinking. It was a very calibrated decision, and the city was brought. I came in City Hall multiple times. I have emails, so there wasn't a hoodwinking, and I understand. I truly do. My neighborhood backed up. I don't want commercial special use permit. That's fine. And to answer your question about the legal offices, yes, I run a real estate team of 15, all females but myself. I need offices and
Well, I see all the cars.
yeah. So we've been in a suite before. That space is not conducive to us. And what Mr. Southbury has there are suites. And he has some offices, but he doesn't have anything that's fitting us. So like I said, I think those are the two main topics that you discussed that I had something to say to. But one was that there wasn't a hoodwinking. There was communication, there was forethought, there was no buying it as a residence to hope to turn, no, it was, this is what we're doing, this is the plan. Like I said, I'm in a holding pattern to continue to invest money in the property because the property doesn't make sense. That's why I sat there for 7.5 months. No one, who knows how long I sat there, who knows what price it would sell at, because no one wants to live there. And I do understand the neighboring, the limit there, but, I mean, we all have to go back to watershed and see how we got there. The difference is it backs up to a city water treatment plant.
And watch this downhill. It's that transition. It's not.
It's set back up to Buffalo Springs, but like I said, what's worse, I mean, the backyard's not gonna look any different. You want trampolines and basketball goals and kites and throw in your backyard. I mean, I understand the commercial fear, I really truly do. If it was a raw piece of land, I can understand that, who knows what it could be. But there is a very nice home there, and it just needs to be a professional office. And right now, it's, like I said.
Were you told that it was okay that it would be commercial when you were discussing, or did it go in front of
No, I was
council?
told it was okay. I was told that I needed to purchase the property and follow the correct procedures, which is what I'm doing here.
I just think you
So
would come to
there's no-
council first and say, hey, what would your desire be? If I were to buy this, and this is what my desire would be in the future, what is your idea? What is the feedback before I make this investment?
Well, there's other properties that I also have on MLK that have city infrastructure, and instead of just doing whatever I want, hoping it works out, I've gone to the city, and the city's told me that this isn't aligned with what our plans are, and I said, well, it's either gonna work for me or not, but it's not feasible to get to a certain step, and you don't know, because I'll be standing in this room as a person that, meanwhile I'm having this conversation, the property's still in the market. I mean, I can't capture that property, and while I'm sitting here having this conversation, and investing all these time and efforts, it's all for nothing because it's sold or what have you. And so I understand, but at the same time, I guess understand my position is that in order to get to this point, I have to acquire the property, then go to the next step, and like I said, I have to live with the consequences if it doesn't rezone. But like I said, I'm ready to invest the money to fix the foundation, to repaint it. My idea is like a white and black farmhouse, modern look with a Texas flag on the side of it, small sign, it looked pretty similar to the watershed. And I understand that that's not forever, but I don't think anyone's gonna buy that property and tear that structure down because
Yeah,
it's.
I think where all this comes from, and what Dave and I discussed this day, is, there is the future zoning map.
Correct.
And it is all both up and down, both sides of 149 is commercial.
But if you can't acquire those properties.
I know.
that map doesn't.
I understand that, but what I'm saying, I think this is where he got his information was these, this right here. Mike, I had that question this morning with Dave.
Yeah.
Well, how did we get here? And, this is part of it.
Yeah, there's definitely two sides to this, and I think it's important to, do we have anybody else that would like to speak, to add to it? Yes, please do, because that was just, the more the better.
Yeah.
Julie Dennison, 114 Anna Springs, over here.
TV can hear you.
Okay.
We appreciate that.
Okay, we've lived here for 8 years. We purchased, my backyard backs up to this property, okay? And like you mentioned, and nothing against you, Dawson.
No.
We got a lot invested in that piece.
No, I understand.
And like you said, the place that you're talking about was a home, that's what you called it. If this happens and this goes commercial, then the next lot down, and I don't know about the deed part, I don't know how all that works, but they're gonna have to let him go commercial. And if he goes commercial, because you went commercial, he's got to go commercial, and you get to go commercial too. That's gonna be taken down, and the strip center's gonna go in there, which is my backyard. There are going to be offices built that nothing will ever go in there. They'll sit vacant like all the others around the area. There will be rats coming into my yard. There will be dumpsters in the back. But my property value is going to go, I wouldn't buy a house with that in the backyard. When we bought our house, we were told it was residential, it would never go commercial. So, and our money said, that's our retirement home, we're going to die in that house. And I think it's not a justice to us to do something like that. And I'm sorry that you did that, but in real estate, you should have known that was residential when you got in there. And now you're wanting to make it commercial. But what's it going to do to all of us? And Ed's and we'll do the same thing, Sarah? I mean,
I truly understand, and I am in real estate, and I would, if I was advising you to buy that property, I would tell you there is a very strong possibility that sometime in the future that property touches an farm to market road with high traffic, that it is very likely that it could get rezoned through due process and the processes that are in place. And I understand that everyone has their opinions, and it's not personal at all. But again, like I said, the county, the value of this property is so subjective that it's unreal.
but that's not our fault. Look what you're doing to us. All of the neighbors along there.
Well, me personally, what I'm personally doing is literally what you go anywhere there's a real estate office. Top Guns backs up to Cape Con Road. We are a residential real estate company that we welcome you, invite you to come in and have a barbecue with us. Let's meet the neighbors. We don't care for dumpster strips and the ordinances that are placed by the city with the 25-foot setbacks, the things that can be done by the city to be that buffer. But be it as it may, you back up to trailer houses, dilapidated houses, houses that give, and I'm not speaking on facts, I'm speaking on opinions of very, I would be questionable of what your property value really is backing up to the current use of the property because of the lack of,
I'd much rather see residential there, because I asked about that before I bought my home. Hey, is this going to ever be commercial? Because I grew up in a residential that turned into a highway that there was traffic all the time, and so wrecks and all kinds of stuff. But I bought it because I was so residential. I found out about the new title and the deeds, and I was like, good, this is a safe area, and I'll be able to have that. And so, with that potentially changing, and I agree.
the city and ask them if it was going to stay
Because
residential.
I found out that it couldn't change because of the title issue. And I wasn't trying to rezone. either.
I
I
you
knew,
said you asked if
If-
it was
if there was
residential
plans.
zone, if it would stay residential. Who did you ask?
that's right.
Who did you
I
ask?
asked my realtor, I asked.
That's like asking me, and I would advise you that it's a very good chance that it could get rezoned. And I don't know who your realtor
I'm
was.
sorry, Mr. Blue, I think you made a bad investment. I think that you should have asked, come to the city and said, hey, what does council, what do people believe, what do they think, get feedback before I made the purchase. And I don't think it's the residents of this town, it's not our fault that you made that investment and that you wanted to change. And I'm not trying to be ugly, but at the same time, you're wanting us to eat your pie, and we don't want your pie. I appreciate what you're doing for the city, I appreciate, but I mean, you said that house is nice, and then you said that house is dilapidated, I'm confused. But at the same time, I mean, the narrative is just different, and I just think that maybe there should have been a little bit more due diligence prior to that. I don't think that we should suffer because of the lack of due diligence.
I think the due diligence could have been having you watch your home that backed up to an FM road that had dilapidated properties and not going to
I
the
did
city
my
hall.
due diligence, and I was here first, so I get to have a say.
Okay, I think we've done a good exchange here. We've heard both sides. Appreciate the input.
Commissioner, can I read one more comment before we get off the public comment
Yes.
portion? So, as I mentioned earlier, just ahead of the meeting, I did speak with one of the property owners across the street. She was one who had received a letter. She's called me on behalf of the estate of Edna Jackson, said that she was opposed to it and that her family was opposed to the request.
Who is this now?
This was Annie Butler. She represents the estate of Edna Jackson, not in a family way. She represents, she's not an attorney for
She,
them.
across the street.
Directly across the street, there's a
Okay.
collection of.
Directly across 149, yeah, Liberty Street. Okay,
Yes.
okay,
So just to tell you that I did speak with her.
yes,
Her comments on the record that she and her family don't support this.
okay.
Does the church have a dumpster?
Okay, we're going to move on to number 5. Thank you. Again, now we're convening at, hearing number 1 convened at 7:01. Hearing number 2 convenes at 7:03 for a rezoning request R1, single-family residence to be commercial for 14640 Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas, as submitted by Evan Ballou. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to comment on this at this time?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there, well, from the public's perspective, is there any buffer, height-wise, depth-wise, that would make it more palatable to allow for a commercial use there? Like, I don't, and that's maybe something, maybe we consider a light commercial corridor where the intensity of the use is regulated. I don't know if that's possible through the zoning
You know,
code.
we've talked about that in the past of, you call it different things, either light commercial, there's a zone type that's called neighborhood commercial, which again kind of speaks to that. We talked about the same thing, say for our downtown, where would a gas station right in the middle of downtown be the best fit? I don't know, but it's allowed to be commercial, which is what it's done now. So to your point, you do not have a light commercial, it's all or nothing commercial.
Okay.
Okay.
But is there anything that would make that use more palatable to anybody?
Did you say there's a drainage issue? Is that what you said? The residents, there's no problem with water or nothing, right? No. Okay, no water or nothing? Okay.
Okay,
It kind of
so
slopes down.
yeah, okay. Anybody else? So we're in public hearing number 2. And I think that's it for comments, right, from the public. So this hearing number 2 is ending at 7:04. Thank you. And so now, We're to the final report. Consideration and possible action on a final report for a rezoning request from R1 Single Family Residential to B Commercial for 14640 Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas, as submitted by Evan Ballou.
Commissioners, you have a draft final report, as always. This is your report, not mine. This is a starting point for us to edit. So please feel free to ask any questions or edit as you see fit. This, as a reminder, will be transmitted to City Council at their May 9th meeting, ahead of their public hearing and ultimate action on the rezoning request.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, in bullet point 2, very last line, the city's future land use plan identifies this corridor as future B commercial zoning.
Yes, that is, it does.
Residents, were you aware of this? When did that become public knowledge?
I want to say the future land use plan was done at about 2015, 2016 timeframe.
Okay, so if the city's future land use plan identifies this corridor as future B commercial zoning, is that a strict B commercial zoning, or can it be reduced to light commercial or neighborhood commercial, or is it the future plan to be a full-blown B commercial zoning?
To answer your question, you could develop a future land use plan for a process that included a light commercial. That's not possible with the tools in our zoning toolbox today.
So to go along with that, would the question be, is that future land use plan, where is it? I'm sorry, what bullet point was that?
Number 2.
I'm on page 22, if you're looking at the,
Yes, okay. Second bullet?
yes, the last line.
So I think we really need to confirm, don't we, that that overlay, whether that overlay for future is official, or is it just
It is not, as we talked about here, I know several times before, the city council back in 2015, 2016 did not adopt that future land use plan.
okay?
That said, that is the only tool right now that we have to look at what our future land use is going to be.
Well, this is what you were talking about, Bill, too. It's
And
a
it's worth
fourth
pointing out, you
point,
don't have to follow
See
the
that.
future land use plan.
but it's not official.
Right.
It's there as a guiding, document, that's all it is.
Sarah, you were saying about the titles. We have the same dilemma in our neighborhood. But the land to the left or the right of this property, where the trailer house is and the house, that sometimes you see people there, you don't see people there. And I'm talking about the wooded area, not the one that has the trailer you can see off of 149, not the brick home, but the other side of it. Is that what you're talking about? That has the title
It's my
issues?
understanding, yes, they all have title issues, and what they did is just pull in a trailer house and then pay I don't know that they're really tax protected any longer, is my understanding. If they pull in, if they destroyed, or that roof line's no longer there, then they pay taxes on that, is my understanding, and not the free tax or whatever the issue is.
Abate.
Or the dilapidated is.
So is the land with the trailer and the brick home, is that titled as well?
So the brick home didn't have that issue.
But
So
the trailer
they
house-
bought that property when the house was built.
Okay.
In the trailer house, I do think it does have that issue, but they took the house out and put the trailer house in and were willing to pay the uptick in taxes with the trailer house.
Do you know officially if there is title issues beside that piece of property?
I don't know exactly which ones, but like Sarah, I mean, a lot of those properties were handed down from generation to generation without an official deed that transferred it to someone. So now there's, multiple family members who all feel like they have a stake in it and, trying to go back and come to an agreement on who owns exactly what, interest of the property, so.
So the worst case scenario, if you couldn't find a title and the last family member passes away or whatever happens, the likelihood of that, because that land's been sitting there for how long? The family's handed down very well. I mean, that piece of property that's down the road from me, you can't even imagine the list of names that are on that deed. I was like, oh, okay. But my concern is, I understand you being residential because I'm a resident too, and I don't want certain things happening in my neighborhood either. I don't see anything else that piece of property could do. I mean, if
It'd be residential, right?
yeah, but nobody's lived there.
There was a car wreck in the front yard this week, and no one wants their kids playing in the front yard, and that. I mean, we
But it
had
might be an
to-
older couple that doesn't have kids, it doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't not, I mean, we don't
They're not
know
gonna buy
if
a
it's
two,
old.
they're not gonna buy a two.
But it's only gonna be
No,
more traffic. so then
we're not going to go into that.
Yeah.
We could go back and forth all night.
I'm just wondering about this
Bottom line is it's
unofficial.
residential on either side and all the way down the street,
Right.
basically. It's residential now, and people live there. And they're set back, I could have somebody come.
At what point do you, so I believe Ms. Kerr has the corner by Jim's, and then there's these pieces we're talking about. At what point do we just have to wait till that property rezones because it touches commercial, and then I think that, I mean,
Is the current property commercial now?
It is on PD or planned development, which under the land use plan is zone mixed use. So our zoning doesn't affect it, but the zoning of the PD or the uses of the PD listed as a mixed use property. Mixed use within the Buffalo Springs PD can be anything from industrial to multifamily.
And Mr. Waddell, I've looked at the city map. If someone were the rezone process to follow it, there is no other property that either touches historic or residential, because Luisa is an interesting piece as well. It backs behind Phil's and the bank, and so there's a lot of, we're just at an interesting milestone with this stretch of road. It's a town with two cross streets. It's one intersection, and we're commercial this way. We're going to be commercial that way. We're going to be commercial this way, and I don't want to displace anyone or change their quality of living. And I know wholeheartedly I won't. I can't speak on behalf of anything else around me, but at the same time, it's a what's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. So, like I
Oh,
said,
yeah, I think our concern is that we could end up with a mismatch all the way down. And again, I go back to these houses that for 6-7 years we've emphasized these programs to fix up the dilapidated houses. And if that's why I feel like this is contradictory to that, because we could end up fixing up all these old houses.
We have to have a title to.
Although, okay, I'm sorry, that I shouldn't say, you're right.
eminent domain is probably.
But can't,
Grant Works doesn't let you if they try.
but if somebody comes in with some, they can afford it, come in and demolish and fix them up. But no, you're right. There's issues with, that's another issue, with deeds or legal. There's definitely two sides to this as far as looking down the road.
So we can redo this draft, is that what you're saying,
We
Dave?
do every word in it. Yes, ma'am. This is just a starting point.
And we're presenting this to city council?
Yes, ma'am. They receive this, they hold their public hearing, and then they can act on an ordinance.
And is this,
So they'll do a public hearing just like we're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
and what about the master plan that I talked about a couple weeks ago? Does the master plan show this probability of 2015, 2016 land use plan do they match the master plan that we have for the city? Do they cross?
So our cities don't have.
There's the current and there's the overlay. The current's in your left hand, and the commercial overlay is in your right.
Yeah. Got it.
Does anybody need any water?
I'm good.
Oh, we are going past time, aren't we?
But like we're saying, that the overlay is nothing official. It's just future master plan of what we would like to see, not what we may see.
Or if it's even possible.
Or if it's even possible, correct, yes.
I just want to know which direction we're going in Montgomery. I mean, when is Lowe's coming in?
Those haven't heard about, but Home Depot.
Home Depot. Sorry, Lowe's, Home Depot,
They
big
opened
box.
up in fall of '24, so fall next year.
Where's that gonna be at?
Behind, or next door to Kroger.
There's the Kroger's, oh, just east. Gotcha.
What's the rear yard setback?
Rear yard in commercial.
Yeah, it says any future redevelopment will include a 25-foot vegetated setback, I'm assuming from the roadway. And then it says side and rear yards, what are those setbacks?
Vegetated setback would be, so on the rear would be 25.
Okay.
Vegetated 25-foot rear yard setback where it abuts commercial properties. Basically, there's 25-foot setback anytime a commercial property touches the residential property.
With vegetative buffer.
Right.
Okay.
And a yard requirement, so the side yard would be, or, so for a commercial property would have a 25-foot side vegetative setback and a 10-foot side yard setback. But in this case, on the rear, 25 and 25.
Are you planning to put privacy fence?
Whatever the city wants or will allow, but no, it already has privacy fence in the back. As far as the front goes, we had no plan, parking and really no lights in the back. And like I said, the backyard would be used for cookouts, crawfish boil, a playground when clients come and they have kids and they want to play. There's not enough room to put in a strip center with that. Doesn't make sense financially to remove the dwelling that's there to do any of that. And it's only 6 years old, so it has plenty of life left in it. It's not a tear down. It is what it is. It's a residential 2-story family dwelling that's on the side of a farm market road in a very busy area. And
Is there any construction inside you'd be doing?
ma'am,
The construction inside of it, is there going to be any besides the
probably
fixing?
just patching up once the foundation work is done, just patching up the cracks and
So it's designed for your office.
ma'am.
It's designed for your offices that you're talking about.
Yes, ma'am. No, yeah, there wouldn't be extensive interior. Exterior, I would just like to paint, signage, parking.
Well, you mentioned crawfish boils, I mean, this
I
is,
know that sounds silly, it's
but
a
it's,
communal.
that's the concern if you're living right behind it, that if that's at night, then you've got more than your normal residential activity. You've got, it could turn into a wild party. So I'm just saying, if this is ever going to work, it's got to have with some real regulations on it.
I think the city ordinances and, I would follow the same city ordinances that a residential dwelling would have to with noise, burning, signage, lightage. I mean, all the answers are in the ordinances and I would follow them and adhere to them.
I just have one more thing to say, and then we can just decide whatever we're going to do. But we've had so many people come in here and stand up on that podium and tell us stuff. And they had drawings, and they had measurements, and they had legal backing, and they spent this much money and all that. And they walk out of here, we get in our car, and we go to drive down the street and completely different opposite thing has occurred. And no, I'm just letting you know, so you're seeing us all sit up here in full forum, and we're sitting here going, okay, so, and you've got your residents who are going, yeah, we've heard that, and they're very cautious about what they want to see in their backyard. And, I mean, but how can we stop progress if it's something that
I just want to
is going to make it better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to run my business in town, and there's nowhere, we've outgrown every space that's available. And there's nowhere, unless you've got 10 digits behind in your bank account, to do any of that anywhere in this town, unless it's 149 North. 105 is out of the realm of most people, and if it's not on 105 in the city, it's within the planned development, and that is, you know, like he's talking about, millions of dollars an acre. You know, it's for someone that, I wasn't going to try to get emotional here, but there seems to be a lot of emotion involved with this. And so for someone that has grown up here, lived here, and wants to, you know, be a part of the city in the sense of, without living within the city, but in the sense of a communal way, it's the last hope of free enterprise, right? Like, I couldn't afford what Mr. Cheatham could afford, or I couldn't afford, you know, anything on 105. And I think we're keeping ourselves within a box in the city to not at least now address, and I thought it was addressed because of the future plan development, mapping, and watershed, and all the things that are happening, but addressing what is, I think you hit the nail on the head, what is the plan, and adhere to it. But like I said, I understand all the concerns. They don't involve me, but I understand the concerns that come with this. They don't involve me in the sense of I know wholeheartedly, and I know at the same time, like you said, I could sell a property, and who knows what the next property owner does. But I know real estate, and no one's going to go tear that property. There's too much dirt to tear down to get onto that piece of dirt. So it has nothing to offer but the dwelling, the 2,400 square feet of real estate that's inside of it. And it's a family home on the side of a very dangerous road. And like I said, literally this week, we called 911 because there was a car accident on our property. It's just, there's nothing else you can do with it. And I think the market bears that, seeing that it sat there for as long as it did. It's just not going to go residential anymore. And it's very unfortunate. But like I said, I'm a good neighbor. I can't speak for everyone else, but
What are your business hours or hours of operation?
8 to 4. Usually someone's in the office, but we can't stop someone. They're all independent contractors mostly. So if someone is there till 6, 7, you know, working on a computer, that's fine. But
You're not going to be putting up lights or anything like that?
no, ma'am, no. It would essentially look the same as it does with paint, parking, sign. That's it.
If on a special use permit, we can put stipulations in that,
Yes, sir.
per owner stipulations. If he would sell the property, it would go back to, or that property owner would have to come back and go through this process.
We've used both before. I believe the one that I'm thinking of is that a transfer of ownership would require the new owner or the old and the new owner to come and say, hey, well, you know, we would like to transfer this. They want to do the same thing that I'm doing. Would you guys allow?
And that would have to come back
So you
before.
don't have to, you can make it where it just goes away with this owner, and the next person needs to go through the whole thing again. You can also make it where it's transferable, in that you don't have to go through the whole process again, but you could simply, you know, talk to the new owner, the council could talk to the new owner, verify that they felt comfortable with.
How long is this special use for?
You can put any time frame. There is no set time frame on them. Most that I've run across generally don't have an expiration on them.
Ms. Goochman might speak to this being an appraisal, and I understand where the thought process comes from that side, but on this side, from the investment standpoint, if there's no security, and if the special use permit can be within the realms of the usage, because I understand where the thought process comes from, but at least within the realm of the usage, the investment into the property will remain, at least the usage won't change, and the investment side of it would also, and I'm not talking about investment on return necessarily, just to put into it. Yeah, obviously return is an important part of investment, but if I were to put parking and signage and to find someone that wants to buy this property and say, I hope they do the same for you, otherwise you gotta have, and at that point, it seems like a no-brainer that it would essentially be used again, but it would, just speaking on my behalf on that topic, if it was kept within the usage instead of the person, then yeah, it would behoove me better, but obviously, whatever grace I can get, so.
I think it's kind of a given that's almost both, as long as it stays the same type of thing.
Well, we can just see how the givens over time can change, or, 6 years ago, this was gonna be commercial, somebody thought, and then we end up with this dilemma, and so,
Right.
but like I said,
Yeah.
I can say from an appraisal standpoint, looking at property values and how backing to commercial affects, it's pretty rare that it affects the property's value. Unless, I've seen it if it's an industrial building, but especially if there's a buffer, it usually doesn't impact property values. That's what I see in my day-to-day, so,
Yeah.
for what it's worth.
Well, and I think we all sense that, Mr. Blue, you want to do a really nice product. And, I envision it's a small parking lot, and it's basically, it looks like a house. So, I guess my thought is we'd like to try to work with you on that, and then maybe the special use permit would be the way. I'm just really reluctant on commercial because this overlay, future overlay, is not, it's not really official. And like Bill said, if we do one, then, it's, so maybe I missed something when I stepped out, but we were talking about special use permit?
No, not while you were out. We kind of were quiet.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
So I will move to approve the final report for rezoning of this property to be commercial.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say aye. Aye.
Say nay.
Nay. I say nay.
I do want to make sure that with all what we're saying, because I brought it up earlier, we can change that second bullet point to say, or any bullet point to say what we want it to say, right? So are we going to change anything? Or are we going to leave it the way it is? You want to put special? You want to put?
I think tonight we just need to give our recommendation in general, and it goes on.
What she's asking, if we want to edit this.
Before we send it to city.
This document, that is your recommendation, I think is what.
Yeah, because that recommendation is saying, hey, yeah, go for it, without any, here's your perimeters, this is what we think after discussing and listening to the people and the homeowner, the property owner. Is there something that we want to have city council consider that we considered when we were discussing it
Well,
for?
if we pass this tonight, commercial is commercial, and that's what it is. It is commercial. Special use permit could be another, that we can't talk about that tonight, but that would be another option. But
Right, those are two different things. You would basically not recommend the rezoning to commercial.
Okay.
If you wanted to recommend, or if you wanted to pursue, or the owner to pursue a special use permit, you would not want to recommend rezoning it to commercial.
Okay.
As Jeff said, when it's commercial, it's commercial.
All right, and we don't want to change anything in that document we're sending.
Well, I don't know if it's possible to add anything about a highest and best use analysis.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a subjective thing, but I don't know. Maybe it's worth including something about that in there.
Is that
But I
possible?
think it's fine.
Is that possible to add?
We can do whatever.
Or we can do whatever we want?
Anything y'all want me to add, or remove, I'll add stuff, remove stuff.
Yeah, because that's what we're doing, is we can edit it with our recommendation.
I guess I moved to approve it. One thing that I would like to see though, it says that this is going to be subject to the 25-foot setbacks on roadway frontage in the rear. The rear that abuts the residential, I would like to see a height, like a vegetative, like of a certain vegetative height. I don't know if like Italian cypress or something like that, that you can't see in, you know, has some height to it so you're not looking at parked cars all day.
So the current requirement for a visual barrier, so there's a vegetative setback and a visual barrier. Visual barrier from commercial to residential properties, I need to confirm, but I believe it's 6 feet in height.
Okay.
The vegetative setback could be anything from sod on up to, full-grown trees.
So really his fence, almost, if it was like a wood fence back there, would suffice.
6 foot, right?
But remember what happened between the church and the personal property owner? Remember when we had that dilemma? When they came in and they said, oh yeah, we're going to put something up there to block the lights and the noise and all that. And then they cleared all the land, and what they put back there was thin trees, and the lights and everything started coming through. So
Yeah, that's
that
what I
was
know.
6 foot. That was 6 foot.
What happened to your Jean's building too?
Yes.
Dean's had to get stuff happen, because he didn't release it.
Yeah, I want to avoid that.
Yeah.
So we
I-
can't add any requirements that aren't already in.
Maybe we just highlight that for council?
No. We can't? Or
We
can we?
can't add a requirement that we don't already have in our, in our development, regulations. In other words, we couldn't require someone to put up a higher, visual barrier than what the ordinance already, has. If the ordinance says it's 6 feet or 8 feet, that's what we can ask of them.
We've also had this issue too, when that commercial property's coming in over where the lights would be coming off of that commercial building down into the neighborhood. We talked about how far off the fence line they were and where the lights would be hitting, and the 6 foot fence and the drop in the property. And it's going to be a question, like everyone always asks, the sound barrier and the 6 foot. Is the 6 foot 3 foot apart, 6 foot apart? You know what I mean? Like if there is vegetation or trees or whatever, when you say 6 foot, are they, if they do decide to do vegetation to put a barrier up?
I think I misunderstood earlier during this special permit. So it's required, you do the special permit prior to being commercial.
You would do it in lieu of a rezoning, actually. You would say, okay, we're going to grant a special use permit which allows for
This.
We'd have to say no.
this type, this very
the special.
specific use with as many conditions as you want to place on it.
I'd rather have the conditions personally. So
Which
that
would
would,
be a-
that would sway my vote.
That would be a special use permit, yes, correct. Then it gives you the ability to
Control.
control.
Exactly.
So does everybody understand? Okay, so we are at a point where we still need to,
We said yes, but now we thought we were able to do special use.
so it's clear if we, the only way to do special use is
Is say
to
no.
Say no to this. Yes, okay.
If we say no, then how do we come about the special use?
The owner can apply, can ask for it.
Right.
Then you-
It still is going to run through council next week. It's going to be a recommendation from the commission either to approve or to deny the zoning request. They're going to take action on it.
So that, truly, that's the only way to get stipulation, to have some real restrictions on it. Otherwise, it's straight commercial
Free
all the
game.
way,
Free game.
for forever and ever. I mean, even if it goes away, then we wouldn't have the control of what goes in there.
And the control though, and what kind of control are we trying to gather? Because it's still 6 foot in the back. It's still 25 foot away. It's still just grass. It's still 6 foot. So special use only will control that the property owner keeps it
Yeah, it
a
controls,
certain way.
it controls the
But it's not going to
look,
protect
the nature of
the neighbors who do not want that there, and what they consider, whatever they consider, the 6 foot blockage, visual barrier, or whatever
I
it
think the way
is.
we gotta look at it, it can control, it makes it a quiet business that looks like a house, that doesn't really bother people next door, as opposed to commercial, that could be anything. You know? But that's the only way to,
If we give a special use, if we say no to this and say, come back with a special use, the special use is good as long as we say it is, or is there a time limit?
You can place a time limit on it for something like this.
And come revisit, and maybe they want to come back when everything starts to turn commercial, and they come back and say, hey, make me a commercial property? Is that an opportunity?
My question would be is when is it gonna start? If, you know, and what is the point in having and I understand, but this is where I'm at on this side. What is the point in having the zoning process if we just want to maintain control? Why let someone be in?
well, typically,
Special use for such a-
it's like we look at your business, we say, oh, we'd like to look, just like we did with the Oaks. It's a beautiful old house, there's a business going on there, but it looks like an old house. It's a good comparison, and they have got the right to do what they're doing, but if they ever change it, then they have to come to us and say, we're doing something different. So I think it's just a matter of, you know, for that ownership, if it changes hands, then they have to go through the process again. But I think that's a good comparison, because that's an old house, and nobody has a problem with it.
I would say that one difference, and I'm not real familiar with which property you're talking about, but is that.
So it's right next to the Hodgepodge Lodge.
Okay, well, it's, in its current condition, it is not 100% feasible to use the use that I want. So the fiscal investment into it, it is more so than what the special use really protects the amount of money that needs for parking and paying. I mean, everything's expensive these days.
Well, you should have looked at that when you
Well,
got
that's a burden, it's a burden I have to bear, 100%.
Yeah.
But as we're speaking on our accords and how our opinions of the matter are, that's just the opinion of the matter is, and if that is the motion, is to go special uses. My view of it is why let anyone rezone if we want to maintain control of the city, is keep everyone within. And I understand some are just no-brainers. I just don't think you're
Well,
going to
it's because the way we're set up, commercial can be anything.
I think we're getting out of
Yeah,
commercial's commercial,
right.
and if it's commercial property and they want to come in with something outside the realm, that's when we'd ask for a special use permit, correct?
If it were rezoned commercial,
I mean, if it's a commercial building, if it's commercial and even like with the food truck courts, you know, they have to have a special use permit. It's zoned, it's going to be zoned commercial, right? I mean, how,
today it's on single family, and so
but like I'm saying, the food court, okay, they have to get a special use permit to be there to run that. Versus a commercial, I don't see the purpose of doing a special use, because commercial's commercial. Now, if he wanted to run a petting zoo there, he would have to ask for a special use.
yes.
Zoning is zoning, special use is completely different.
So his proposed use of a professional office space, we find that in our table of uses, and
Right.
it says, okay, that use, the use of this property as a realtor office
Right.
in a commercial district is permitted by right.
Right. So the special use really doesn't pertain at this point. It's,
Right, to your point, it's another tool
Right. If,
necessarily the next step in
right.
this.
If he wanted to, if somebody wanted to come in and run something else on that.
Because it still stays, I guess the bottom line, it still stays
Correct.
residential. And I think that we need to keep in mind the next thing on the agenda, new city administrator Gary Palmer did a lot of research, and what he came up with for mobile trucks, whether it's a food park or a single food truck, is let's get away from the red tape, let's keep this thing simple, and that's kind of where we're at now with going to special use permit,
Because it's being used.
because you have control.
Right. But I think at this point here, we need, it's either yay or nay on the rezoning of commercial.
Because there's nothing we can make them
Control
do.
within the ordinances, isn't that in place to keep the city in control of your setbacks, your
Oh,
noise,
yeah.
your light pollution?
Right.
your
That's what I'm
fire?
saying is this decision we're making right now is not special use. It's zoning from residential to commercial and that's it.
Right.
You know, if something happens and you, like I said, if you wanted to run a petting zoo, then you would have to come and get a special use
Right.
permit from the
It's the city
city.
ordinances about how
But
many animals
what
you
we're
can
talking
have.
now is zoning,
Right.
flat out, straight across the board zoning.
I think that special use is probably more relatable to a larger tract of land where the usages are so wide array, where we want to keep it within this box of, hey, we don't know what you're going to do with it.
Right.
I would use that card when a large blank slate, but you're looking at a residential dwelling that there is no other option. I'm inside my own parameters, my own box, or whatever, but I have.
It's not your typical commercial look, so
Correct.
that's why a special use permit works well.
Yeah, so, basically what we're here to do right now is decide on from R1 to commercial B. So we really can't make any stipulations on, at this point now, special use.
Correct, yes.
Right, right. So the recommendation is from R1 to commercial, B commercial.
Well,
That's one of your,
Yeah.
one of the recommendations.
but if you like the idea of using a special use permit, then we have to decline this. We don't want to change it to commercial.
Right.
But the special use really doesn't give us any more power. It just stops the next person.
No, it does, because then you can say it has to look like a house and it's got to be a quiet business. It's just like the Oaks. It's, you can.
The Oaks is commercial, right?
No, it's a special use permit. That's a residential area. It's still zone residential.
Jeff, I think with a planned development district, and with a PDD.
Yeah.
Just similar to what you're
Okay,
doing.
but it's not commercial,
Right.
no.
But
It
it's,
probably doesn't run a road with 6,500 cars a day.
Well, there's a lot of homes on roads that are busy roads. It's not uncommon. I can get a car come through my front yard where I live, but it happens. Let's not use scare tactics, okay?
I don't know about the
We're
special
talking
use.
real world here, okay?
There's no scare tactics.
Okay, the special use permit, I think, is a way to control things, but what are we trying to control? And what we're trying to control is if he decides to sell in 6 months, 6 years, the next person that's coming. And that's the only thing that special use is going to do for us. We can't stop it has to be 6 foot, it has to be 25 foot. Those things are our ordinances. We can't control that. And that if the special use is to make him quiet or make that property quiet or no lights going in there, that's what our ordinance officer is for. Go out there and say, hey, the lights are shining in the back, they're too loud, or they stayed open too late, they're past hours.
No, we've got residents here that are very concerned that if this thing goes commercial, 3 years down the road, if he leaves, then a gas station could go in there. You're the one that said it.
I know, but I don't think a gas station can.
Sure can, but you just ask him. Anything on that list can go in there.
A gas station can go there?
Hell, yes.
You wouldn't put a gas station on anything less than 8.
Well, it could be something else. It could be a pig farm, okay? It could be a freaking chicken farm. Okay?
That city ordinances are already in place to stop that from happening. All the rules are in place to stop these things that you're worried about happening. There's city ordinances that say you can't have pig farms.
I'm sorry. I'm processing information. I hope everybody else is. We've had a lot of good discussion. We got residents showed up, and let's process the information and get real. Come on.
So what was the motion? Or is it over?
So
Or
I'm
what are we doing?
We are not making any changes to this draft that's here in front of us. It is what it is, and we're either going to say yes or no to commercial, and earlier, all of us said yes to commercial.
I didn't.
Okay, Jeff said no.
It's 3-2.
2 nays.
It was,
Bill and Jeff said no.
yeah.
And then we just had a discussion, and Daniel indicated he would rather see go the other way.
That was my mistake. If it's binding, it is.
So you don't want the option of a special use permit? then?
I would prefer that, but
So
I made my vote. If I could change it, I would, but I don't want to back out of what I said.
I think if you were concerned about something, again, I'm not an attorney, guys, but
I should have done it prior.
Or if you were confused about something and thought you were voting one way, but you realized that you were voting another way,
yeah,
I
we're all human.
can imagine that you guys should be able to correct that and amend it now as opposed to living with, I was confused, but I've already said it, so I can't change it. I think you make the motion that you want to make as a body, and everybody understood what they were voting on in the vote. So,
Okay, we have a good
I
understanding.
want to say something. Feel free as a commission to give all the input and concerns as part of that discussion. Because until it goes to the council and approval, and also in the past, y'all have put some caveats or some different item bullets. You can also ask Dave, I think.
That's what I was asking, is if,
Yeah, they can't.
We can't put caveats on
They have to accept
commercial.
the way it's written today.
Okay.
They said-
But
That's
you
what I-
can participate in the forum like anybody
No,
else.
we can edit
Express
this.
some concerns.
Okay.
they can.
Yeah, we have to accept it the way it's,
can we accept this draft? We only can accept this draft. No, we can change it.
what I'm telling you is that you cannot vote to approve it to be rezoned, but create new conditions just for this commercial piece of property. That's what I was telling you earlier. So in other words, we can't say we want to rezone it, but we need a 30-foot fence in the background. We couldn't do that. You would have to just, but you don't have to accept this report as is. In fact, if you're going to move to not recommend approval, you want to change this more than just saying from approved to not approved, right? And if you're going to say no, have 3 or 4 reasons why you're saying no as a body. We put that in a report, and that goes to council. Were any questions on that, or any clarification?
Yeah, I think that's helpful, and this way we can pass on our concerns to council and take the next step. Okay, I think I probably said enough. I mean, I think we just have to look at, you got to remember, commercial is commercial, and there's no way to vary, you can't make it different. All right, Dave, so we can just back that up a little bit? And
I think you can say if there's anyone that would like to change their vote.
I would have someone make the motion that someone wants to make, and
Yeah.
as long as everyone is clear and understands what they're voting on when they vote for it, and that's what
Okay.
we're going to do.
that'll work.
Would anyone like to I make a motion for someone to tell us if they want to change their vote. Does anybody want to change their previous vote on whether this goes to city council as is, from changing from residential to commercial?
That's a no, but I'll second that.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to change their vote? Yours was,
I voted to approve it.
you voted
nay.
Nay.
yes?
Nay.
All right, so now we can do a motion, or would that was
I think that was just a tally of votes there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, now you would need a motion to either approve it or deny it, just, counting there, you've got three folks who want to move to not approve or to recommend to not rezone the property, I would suggest one of those three be the one to make the motion, because that's the motion that's going to pass. So someone needs to move to not approve the recommended rezoning. List a couple reasons. We're concerned about neighbors to the rear. We're concerned about what types of uses would come along with commercial. Any reasons that you feel are appropriate that you typically ought to back your decision about reasons.
I'm for it, so I can't make the motion. So who's against it needs to
Well,
make the motion.
as chairman, I don't usually make a motion, but Bill, if you want.
Daniel, did you want to, since you started?
Sure. I'll make a motion to, I guess, disapprove? Deny the recommendation for the rezoning from R1 family residential to B commercial for 14640 Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas, as submitted, in order to provide, to ensure that down the road, in concern for the neighbors to the back and future restrictions that we will not have.
And we need a second.
No, second.
We have a motion, and I think that was the detail that Dave was looking for, and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, we have 3 ayes, 2 nays, and I think, for the record, you've got that. All right, well, we appreciate the discussion from everybody and the input, and hopefully we can work this thing out. Because we'd like to see you do well. Okay, moving on to item number 8. Convene into public hearing number 1 on preliminary report for proposed amendments to section 9888 of the Code of Ordinances, Table of Permitted Uses.
Jeff, I think
We skipped.
back up one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
I'm so sorry. Okay, number 7. Consideration of possible action on a preliminary report for proposed amendments to section 9888, Table of Permitted Uses of the City Code of Ordinances.
Commissioner, you've got the preliminary report in front of you. As a reminder, at last month's meeting, our city administrator, David Palmer, gave us an overview of the proposed changes to Chapter 64 regarding local food vendors, street festivals. The piece that is affected in the zoning code is the table of permitted uses. And so the proposed changes that Gary proposed last time to us were that any mobile food unit that wanted to operate within the historic district needed a special use permit, and that food truck courts, also known as food truck parks, would also need a special use permit regardless of where they were located.
And units outside of the historic district not subject to a special use permit unless they're in a food court.
Right, the developer of a food truck park, say, down 105 or out, west or south of us, if you were developing a food truck park, you would need a special use permit. If you're an individual food unit and you're operating in the historic district, you also need a special use permit.
But outside of it, you don't.
But outside of it, you would not. If you were an individual.
If you're an individual food truck.
Yeah, right.
These are the only 2 things he is going to change on that?
Yes, ma'am, as far as the table of permitted uses, those are the only changes to the zoning code that go along with all the changes that he went over for the mobile food vendors.
I like what Gary did on here. Reading hearing his report the last time he was here and going over all this. It's something it's a good start to the food truck procedure. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the preliminary report on sections 98-88.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Because we've had good discussion on this before. And we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I have more discussion on it, to be honest.
sure.
Yeah, so I contacted some food operators that I know. There's a family friend of ours that he's operated in multiple states, different municipalities. Granted, his main location is in California, but I've looked into Conroe. The way that they handle mobile food units is through a business permit through the city. And some municipalities will limit the number of permits that are given per year. And, then for special events, it's so it's usually, $50 to $125. And then special events would require a fee of like $400 for a weekend or, a big day where they're going to have a lot of people, that kind of guaranteed business. So I think maybe that's something instead of a special use permit. So just something to consider. I just wanted to put it out there, make you guys aware. The other thing is that, and I know we're trying to cut down red tape, but a lot of municipalities, Conroe included, require liability insurance. There's often environmental health concerns. I know we're trying to, I know the red tape issues, but those are also real concerns because then who's at fault if you're not ensuring the health and safety of these operations?
One thing we have control of is the land use. Those you're talking about will be in ordinances through city council.
They'll be through chapter 64.
64. Right now, we're just talking about, the only thing we have control over is land use, just like we did with the commercial rezoning. All that will be taken care of through the ordinances in 64 on fees. Right.
Not to speak to the business license, but say like your insurance and your health certificates, from the county, they have to show those today to us.
Right.
To get a mobile food vendor permit in the city.
Okay.
So,
And I guess it kind of so one of my other issues that I was thinking about, okay, well, the ice cream shop that drives by every Sunday, and I know generally he's outside of the historic downtown, so I guess he wouldn't be subject to this, but that's just something to think about,
the proposed ordinance exempts ice cream vendors or ice cream trucks mainly because they never stop long enough to enforce. I stole that line from Gary.
Yeah, but this tonight is just for the land.
Yeah, and so I listened to the last meeting. So is it private property? You don't require a special use permit. This is like if you were to park in front of Cedar Brook Park, right? Or park.
It won't be a bad one because it's not private property.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. The special use permit would be required for parking in front of Cedar Brook Park, but not in front of,
The empty lot beside the
a
Skinners.
real estate company.
Right, to use,
If-
back on that property.
Anything outside the historical perimeter, they do not need a special use permit. But if they want to park Cozy Grapes or Rindy's or whatever inside, then they'd have to apply for a special use,
So is it,
other than a festival.
so this is going to be on top of a business or in lieu of a business license? Are we going to?
We don't issue a business license, we do issue a mobile food vendor permit.
Okay.
So you would come and you would get your permit if you were going to be in front of, say, the Napa, auto parts over here, you wouldn't need a special use permit. But if you said, hey, I'm going to set up in the wine and design, parking lot, for the day because they're going to have an event, that would need a special use permit because you're operating that within the historic preservation district. So that's right now the proposal on.
And is it an annual renewal or is it in perpetuity?
For the special use permit, it could be either depending on, typically you're not, so when I was saying, so council can add those restrictions, one like this is probably not one that they're gonna just grant in perpetuity, because there's not anything that's really permanent about the circumstances. They're a mobile vendor, they're, somewhere for a set amount of time, but it doesn't involve a building or, permanent alterations to the property, so.
And no, and we're not addressing like limiting the number administered, right? Like that's something, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay, no, that's fine, I had the same questions. So-
We also brought up the 501c charity, and someone gay was to look into this, or did we look into anything about the 501c charity that would be affected by this?
Not in terms of I'm not doing any active work on chapter 64.
Yeah, that wouldn't have anything to do with this.
I'm just reading my notes, so I'm asking a question.
So, did we vote on the preliminary
Yeah.
report?
Yeah.
I tried, yeah.
I know we had a motion, and we had a second. Did
We did not vote.
I believe the motion was to approve the preliminary report.
Correct.
Second
Yes.
on that.
So we had,
And I hadn't voted, but
yeah, so,
I approve. Yay, yay.
okay, so 100% yay.
Yay. Yes.
We had a second, I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
We've never had this much trouble with voting and making motions. Normally, we're tickety-boo.
I'm sorry. Yeah, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
It's like
It's unanimous. All right. So,
How to do it.
now moving on to number 8. Convened to public hearing number 1 on the preliminary report for proposed amendments to section 9888 of the Code of Ordinances, the table of permitted uses, which we just talked about.
Commissioner, as this does relate to the mobile food units in general, Manny and Michael are here tonight, and I'd like to just take a minute just to.
I just want to say thank you for having us. We are pulling our project out of Montgomery. Economics, high rate, mortgage, interest is eating us up. At this point, we estimate about a 2-year build out still. McCorkindale's been awesome. The mayor's been awesome. Mr. Waddell, Bill, we can't say enough.
Mr. Palmer.
Mr. Palmer, yeah, the city administrator. We can't say enough about this city that hasn't been fantastic. We wish that we could be an integral part of the business. Our business model in my town was exceptional, but it just doesn't make sense to us at this point. So we will be, I will put our property up on the market.
Oh, okay, so,
The bank raised our interest rate up by almost 6 points.
okay.
Because the interest rates.
So it's, okay, so you're pulling back right
Yeah,
now?
we can't.
We're selling the
You're
property.
gonna
Oh, you are?
We can't
Okay,
do the
We're
project.
not going for it.
It almost tripled our interest when we started.
okay.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate.
Thanks for telling us.
Appreciate you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate you being
For
here.
letting us know.
And going through all that.
I mean, this was a 10-year project for us doing this.
Right.
We've invested already about 18 months of preparation, negotiation, purchasing, architectural. We have 85% of the engineering complete on paper for what we wanted to accommodate what the city needed over there as well. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. I completely understand that these days.
So,
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
if you find an angel, let us know. God bless you all.
Thank you, thank you.
Good night.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Right across from, where was this going to be?
Oh, wow.
That's the current ones.
Okay, so that public hearing was from 8 o'clock to 8:03 approximately. And then now we'll convene into
Did we make him?
public hearing number 2 on the same report, preliminary report for proposed amendments to section 9888 of the Code of Ordinances, table of permitted uses. Are there any other comments from the public?
I've not received any comments either before or even or during the week on this.
Okay. so that concludes public hearing number 2. Moving on to item number 10, consideration and possible action on a final report for proposed amendments to section 9888, table of permitted uses of the city code of ordinances.
Commissioners, you got a draft report in front of you. Feel free to edit, amend as you see fit, or you're in agreement with it, you're in agreement as presented. I can answer the question.
Question, okay, so this would allow, if you have a special use permit to operate within the historic downtown, do you have to get permission to park in a certain location, or is it free reign open?
Always has to be on private property, no use without permission is granted on public property. So the special use permit still requires you to be on private property.
So, but no city, like, it's not, I want to operate in the Cozy Great parking lot.
So you would tell us exactly where you were going to be. You'd have a letter,
Okay.
from the property owner saying, Dave's going to do, he's got a whole food truck, and I'm letting him set up in my parking lot on Sunday afternoons.
Okay. And is there a time limit that they're, like, how often do they have to be on the move?
There is no mobility requirement in proposed chapter 64.
Okay, that's chapter 64, I'm sorry. Thank
So,
you.
but it's, when we talk about it, it is related, but right now, as Mr. Palmer has proposed it, there are no mobility requirements for these food vendors.
Well, I think that's important to address, yeah.
I think in his mind comes down to the enforcement. There's like 6 of us on staff. Who's going to do it? So it's a matter of.
I'd like to have the option to do it.
Sure.
You know?
No, I understand, yeah, that's a really challenging, question on that.
Okay.
Wait, it's literally one of the 3 names, open.
Yeah, right. You're on wheels
Yeah.
to move.
I understand.
So where'd Commander go?
But this report doesn't concern that. That's for another time.
Right.
Dave.
So this is just doing this, and to tell you guys, so this one isn't going to council next week. What Gary asked me, he said, hey, look, so we're going to workshop this with the council. At the last meeting, or ahead of the last meeting, we had a workshop on the proposed changes. We're not on a very tight timeline. They want to get this right. What we're doing on the table of uses update is we're getting our recommendation together. So when council is ready to pick this up and move it, this is one piece that we've got and we can, move with.
Okay.
So we're piecemealing it essentially.
Right,
Okay,
because
sure.
It's
hard
huge.
to address the land use component of mobile food vendors in chapter 64. You got to come over to the zoning code. So,
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah,
Can I do number 10?
please.
We're going to make a motion,
I'll
aren't we?
make a motion to approve the final report for the proposed amendments to section 98-88 in the table of permit uses of city code ordinances.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any, no opposition, the motion passes. All
Make a
right.
motion to adjourn.
Not quite yet. One more thing.
Soon.
Under commission inquiry, I'm surprised you didn't want to have something to say.
Give me a minute.
Usually have a good question. Well, as a matter of fact, both, last meeting, I think it was Marion brought up the different demographics moving into the city. We talked about the townhome, that whole possibility of a townhome zoning, and Brittany had also asked about a study of different neighborhoods, and Bill, I think you mentioned maybe you had some thoughts on that whole idea of townhouse. Well, you said you were going to bring something back or something. Anyway, I just,
That was a month ago.
I wrote it down. But anyway,
I
so
apologize, I'll bring it next meeting.
it was a good discussion. I think that is something that,
Right.
because it tied in with the small lots as opposed to doing, maybe
Right.
quality town.
Yeah, somebody, I did
Yeah.
remember someone
Yeah.
speaking of the townhomes.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Merkel's smaller,
Yeah.
little bitty.
That was at the, our big meeting.
Yes. Oh, yeah, workshop.
That was at the
Yeah.
workshop.
So just, I know you're working on that, and it's something we're all interested in talking about, maybe at the next workshop. That's
Maintenance and that, maintenance and
Yes, yes.
Townhomes,
Right.
patio homes. You know, if they're gonna go small, then
It's a good,
advertise it as that, or
yeah, it's
whatever.
another option as compared to small lots. Okay, and then the other thing I just want to mention, we've got a lot of feedback from the public about the kids need a place to play and more space. And just, maybe you already know this, Dave, but the area behind Montgomery Park, it's the last section that's still open, and they have finished that off somewhat, but I just wonder if they've determined what they're going to do with that, because it's pretty big, and it's one last open area for kids to play.
Incidentally, I think that is a reserve to Lake Creek Village Section 3. I don't know if it's Section 3, but it is, you're talking on the far
A
east.
lot of those last 3 houses got built, yes, in that neighborhood, and they face onto it, but it's right
And
there.
there's actually, it turns out that the folks who constructed some of the projects in Montgomery Park, the Rotary Club and others, have actually built improvements on the HOA's land.
Oh.
So outside the bounds of what is Montgomery Park, not bad, but like the little butterfly wall or.
Yes, right behind. And there's
It sneaks over the property
there's a-
line into subdivision property.
Yeah, because we have had more and more people looking to see, I mean, it's a great park, but it doesn't really, never really had an open area for kids to just go throw a football.
Right.
And so there is a nice shaded area there with a big table, picnic table, and then right there where the interactive kids thing where they're reading the signs, if you're standing there. Do you think, so that's all, that open area is part of the HOA, part of that neighborhood?
I can't say 100% if we're talking about the same side, but there's essentially there's a strip of land between the houses.
Yeah.
Or deer-back fences and
Yeah.
the park.
Okay.
That is owned by the HOA,
It is.
not the park. So the parkland doesn't go all the way up to those back fences. It varies a little bit in depth, so it's probably going to remain open just right against the fences because again, the HOA is fine with it being, maintained and taken care of like it's a park, but I don't think they want a bunch of things or elements added to it that they would be stuck with.
Okay. Good to know, thank
And I think on that study that you mentioned, that bird study or that you referenced, I think that was what I included in the agenda item where we talked about those different neighborhoods. We did make that meeting. So I did a big report for you.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. But that's what I think, is that what you referred to, kind of what we looked at and talked about the density and
Yes.
is that, I think, I just want to make sure that I don't know you guys.
The term was possible townhome zoning.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I need to make that happen.
Well, kind of along that same vein then, maybe it's something we re-examine the zoning code in total and say, okay, identify C1, C2, light commercial, more intense,
Yeah.
so we have some variance, so it's not just like where we have someone coming saying, I want to go commercial, and it's like, well, you have absolute rights to do everything.
And we've got to consider all of, every commercial use in the book versus
Right.
being able to say, this type of commercial.
Right.
Sure, get my head around that.
And I know that's a big job, but maybe that should be on the radar of the city at some point too.
I mean, we're growing, and people are coming, and they want to do different things, and everyone has a different idea about whatever it is they want to do, and they have their right to do that, but we have to have more options at our disposal so that we can offer them other alternatives. And again, master plan, I just want to see the master plan.
I'm going to bring this meeting video to my budget conversations. We're talking about funding initiatives for next year. So,
Mr. Cordell, what is the process now for applying for special use permitting?
I'll circle back to you right after this.
Yes, sir, sorry.
I move to adjourn.
Ooh, and I second it.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
It's been a long day. It's 5 o'clock in the morning.